taking over, that's a promise, not a threat.
Uppercut season off top, you stop breathing.
Previews. So we actually got, we got 2 cards for next weekend. I think I'm gonna go into the PBC one because PBC, like I said, I think this is probably the last of their, the streak that they've had of their schedule that they that they put out earlier this year. And so, and like I said, as we mentioned before, it's been a hell of a year for Showtime. I've been fucking with a lot of the Showtime cards, not the pay-per-views though, the card, but the actual regular Showtime cards have been on point. I just gotta make that little distinction. And so we have a main event there, and a main event that obviously we were talking about before we went live, where we have the new and the reigning WBC featherweight champion Magsayo challenging Rey Vargas. And Lukie, I know we were talking about this briefly. So, what do you think about this fight? Just to share your thoughts about this fight to the people listening.
I mean, I think it's a really slept-on fight. Mark's a really talented pressure fighter. He's been in wild card for a long time. And I think the hidden story of this is Sean Gibbons is a fantastic manager, and he's one of the best matchmakers in the sport. But he doesn't get credit for being as good of a matchmaker as he is because he's a manager. But he's actually got a very keen eye at finding fighters who fit certain styles really well. I believe he also brought in Mauricio Lara to beat Warrington. It's like he consistently finds guys that can beat a certain style over and over and over again. And that's the big thing with him. That being said, Rey Vargas, 1 second, you guys, so can someone take over for a second?
Oh yeah, no problem. I'll do that. So yeah, pretty much, Magsayo, obviously, he became champion earlier this year by dethroning Gary Russell, the long reigning featherweight champion. But it was not a fight that had a lot of people impressed for a lot of reasons. Because for one, Gary, went into that fight with shoulder injuries, and basically was one arm. But to most people that were watching, it did seem that that Gary outboxed dude with one arm. For most people,
Magsayo did really very little. Magsayo did very little. I mean, he should have done more against a guy with just one arm. Come on now. He was too close for that.
He won on volume, but when you look at, this is a Gary Russell who missed weight on the scale. This is a Gary Russell who's older. Honestly, it looks like Gary boxing isn't a major focus of his life. His father had health issues. His father has since sadly passed away. It looks like he's coaching his brothers. Not just was Gary hurt, Gary didn't even seem like boxing is a priority anymore. This is just simply a hustle. And I think what was scary about the fight was more than likely the worst version of we've seen of Gary Russell in the past, 15 years. That still gave Mark issues. And he's getting in there with probably, one of the better 122-pound champions of the past 5 or 6 years in Rey Vargas.
He was.
Guy, he looks like a scarecrow. He's a Nacho Berenstein fighter. He's absolutely, if you want to see an entertaining fight, he is not the guy to go to at all. He's a guy that is completely willing to just move and outpoint you and go all 12 rounds
Miguel
and disciple all. He's kind of in that, except that he's not going to hold from what I remember. But he's just and I think that this is a fight where it's to me, it just comes down to Rey Vargas' leg issue. Didn't Rey Vargas hurt his leg? If Rey Vargas' leg is...
Has he not fought in 2.5 years? Has he not fought in when was it? When did he last fight?
He was
No, he did fight. I forgot. I remember he took before then a 2-year layoff. I'm trying to remember when the last time he fought. That kind of messed me up a little.
Yeah, no, he was on that Plant Alvarez card, the one I trashed a lot.
No, you're right. I had to think about it for a minute.
And he's the reason that Terrence Williams or Tremaine Williams fought Angelo Leo for the WBC belt, because that was his belt, but he was so inactive. That's where that belt came about, and that's where Fulton got the WBC title. If all things are equal, Rey Vargas has the greater skill set. but Mark Magsayo has one of these weird styles where it's like if you're not 100% capable of doing what you do, Mark is always going to be able to do what he does until he can't anymore. And I think another thing to think about with Mark is he was originally a 135-pound fighter all the way down to 126 pounds. This is a massive guy, and this fight to me is going to show us if he's like a generational pressure fighter like an Emmanuel Navarrete or like a Brandon Figueroa type guy.
Nah, he's not.
But I mean, if he wins this, we have to throw him in that conversation, right?
I mean, I feel like he's not Magsayo. Mark, well, the thing is with him, I don't feel like he's one of those pure pressure fighters. Like, he'll throw a lot of punches sometimes. Because what's that fight he had? I think, what was it, Seha?
Yeah, the Seha fight.
Yeah,
he
killed Seha, I think.
He was going life and death with dude. So, but the thing is, he could punch and he's determined. But I feel like I feel like Gary Russell didn't have the power to make dude try more.
I just don't think that he had a healthy enough body. I mean, I think the power was there. I just don't think that Gary mentally was there.
And he overlooked them too.
Yeah, I think it's one of those fights that Gary just, I think, even I was like, I was had me worried. Gary just didn't seem like his mind was 100% on boxing, and he damn near almost beat the guy with one arm. So it's like, under the right circumstances, I mean, Gary probably could beat him. But Magsayo, yeah, as you're right, he's boiled down from lightweight. He has power. Like, he's not going to go away easy. And that Julio Seja fight too. I mean, to be fair, Seja gave Brandon Figueroa a lot of problems and probably arguably beat him. So Seja is a tough guy, and also gave Rigo a hard time.
Pat, can I be controversial? So if Mark Magsayo beats Gary Russell and Rey Vargas, to me that's more impressive than Bam Rodriguez beating Quadras and the Rat King.
Agreed. Yes. So
if you're doing that, he'd have to be the front runner. If that's your criteria for Fighter of the Year, he should be the. It's simply on activity and accolades. Mark Magsayo with a win here puts himself into the conversation with Fighter of the Year. Do I believe people are going to say that? No, because I don't think people, for whatever reason, will say that. But I think that he has a good case if he has a dominant win here.
I mean, Vargas has a 0. So if he ends up bodying Rey Vargas, because Rey Vargas' chin is not the sturdiest of chins, so he can be dropped. If he ends up,
that's what will happen. He'll get KO'd, or dropped and lose. Mm-hmm. It feel like they trying to Magsayo. Can you say his name one more time?
Mark Magsayo.
Magsayo. Okay. It seems like they giving Magsayo the push now. Yeah. Where if you don't dominate him and just flat out beat his ass, he might get favorable love on the scorecards and shit. And I don't think Vargas is a guy. I mean, look at the Gary Russell fight. Like, you could very well score that a draw almost.
Yeah, but that we all know that judges are always going to favor volume, and that's where Gary got himself into problems. Was like, you can't with that type of fighter.
But this is PBC judges. They all over the place. Look at Tony Harris and Jamel Charlo, the first fight.
Well, the worst decision I've ever seen was on a PBC card. That's when Mike Fox fought Gabriel Maestre. And Mike absolutely annihilated him and lost. And it's like, that's like the golden standard of a terrible card.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. And then I'm just reading Lone Star Steph's comment. He just went out and said, Mark kind of trash. I don't know, B. Yeah, I mean.
I feel you, because it's like, he almost seems like he has like average tendencies, like trash. Like, he could be like very pedestrian in the ring, but then he can flip a switch.
He's really strong.
Yes.
Yeah, he's strong. He's strong.
Yeah. He's strong. And I would say he's determined as well, because the beating Seja was putting on him, and for him to come back,
and not too cold
out. Yeah, that was one of the knockouts of the year last year.
I mean, not to be a hater on the front line, but I will be. It's kind of a shame that Magsayo has to fight Rey Vargas right now, when we potentially could have him fighting Brandon Figueroa or Lee Wood, those would potentially be fight of the year type fights.
Facts.
Like,
no question.
this is only going to be a
Isn't Lee
fight
Wood
of the
supposed to be fighting?
Find LSC,
Well,
but they need to be announcing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the whole thing with Santa Cruz with WBA consolidating their
LSD, he ain't fought at that weight since like 2019. No, it's like, come on.
And that's a great fight, like, you know. But I mean, like, I think the shame is a guy like Magsayo, he's burning the candle at both ends. He's a great puncher, he's a great pressure fighter. When you get these type of guys and you get a Figueroa, you really got to try to make these fights as fast as possible. Because we think back on Marco Antonio Moreira, Morales, all those guys, their window, when we look back on it, it wasn't massive. Like, with the fact, you know?
Yeah, well, Luke, because the reason why, because they started boxing in their teens. So by the time in their early 30s, they all got the higher divisions they went, they got burnt out. I mean, Morales got his ass handed to him by Raheem. Guerrero was going life and death with Rocky Juarez. It was a lot of different things going on. Like,
I mean, Rocky Juarez was that dude, though. Like,
he was, yeah. So I mean, eventually time did catch up to those two.
Back then, everybody was more competitive. It wasn't this whole going 18 months between fights, 13 months between fights. You was fighting top contenders too. Like, it's different, man. You're not gonna get as many. Like, you don't even need a Hall of Fame no more. You just need a Hall of Very Good for this era.
Well, and that's the issue, right? Is the guys aren't fighting that often. And my theory, and this makes a lot of people mad, is they're just not good enough to fight often, right? Because these guys might randomly lose. Like, if you fight 4 times a year, you're gonna have a bad night, right? And you're gonna lose to a guy.
If you ain't shit, yeah.
If you're a mid-level fighter, or you're like a pretty good fighter, but every now and then somebody's gonna have their best night, and you're gonna be okay. And I think the problem with this era is we got a lot of guys who just aren't talented enough to fight consistently and regularly. So they just are kind of like, okay, I'll fight this year. Okay, maybe I'll come back in December. And what it does is no one cares, because Tom Brady plays 16 football games a year. LeBron's
17 now.
17. LeBron's playing, 82 basketball games? All these athletes are in people's lives for multiple weekends. Boxers are there for maybe 2 a year, and then don't expect to see them on television or on a broadcast. That's like punishment, and heaven forbid they say anything interesting. The disconnect is they don't fight enough, and then it's almost like punishment when we actually get the compelling, like, hey, would you fight someone? It's like, man, I'm gonna leave it up to my manager, you know, I'm just a fighter, you know. Say something for once, you know. Say something. And that's the issue. I think that's the bigger issue too. We have a whole lot of fighters who have nothing to say other than they want to make money, or they want to be quote unquote great, but they don't have anything to say like all we had. Right?
They don't want to be stars no more. They don't want to be stars. Back in the day, if you found out you was fighting on Tuesday night boxing and you was the main event, you damn told everybody in your fucking neighborhood. You made a big deal about it. Like, you cared. You had the best performance of your life. Like, you're not getting that no more from the average run-of-the-mill fighter now.
Right,
you happy to be there. That's it.
And that was the whole reason too. Like, I really got behind Isaac Doe, because that year he did fight 4 times. And Lukie said though there was that one slip up near the end of the year, his final fight, where he had to fight a Navarrete, who handed him.
The slip up was in the fucking matchmaking, bro. Like,
well, no one knew who Navarrete was, bro. That was one of them.
Still, look, dude. Like, some people, you could look at him and you could tell, like, nah, I don't want to close the year out fighting this guy. Start the year off, yeah, but close it, no. This year been too good.
Numbers was on a roll. He had to. I mean, he bodied an Asian cat in the first round. He had to fight of the year.
True, but bro, like, he just now got back on a roll. And how long ago was that?
True.
Like, his whole career got taken away, like, for like 2 years.
Right. And funny too is, and what Luke said with the inactivity, and the inactivity is the reason why I call Magsayo and Vargas 50-50, because Vargas has been wild in that, like, only one fight in 2 years, because he was coming back from the broken leg. So in terms of what we thinking for a prediction, Pilot, how do you think? What's your prediction for Magsayo and Vargas?
My mind is kind of telling me I think Vargas might win a decision, but I think I'm gonna go with Magsayo. Magsayo with the late stoppage.
What round?
Round 11.
Round 11. Okay. Kingpin.
Pilots backing his fellow Filipino.
Yeah. Something like that.
P, your prediction?
I'm going Vargas decision. Yes. I'm not really high on Mark Magsayo. I didn't like his performance last time around, and I just think Vargas is gonna beat him. Vargas is gonna outplay him.
That's what it is. LB, your prediction?
That guy, the Filipino guy.
Magsayo.
Magsayo. I'm picking him. I think he'll get a late stoppage or a lopsided decision.
So let me give you a narrative arc before I give you my pick, and it'll play into my pick. Is this the first time Nacho Berenstein has faced Freddie Roach since the Marquez Pacquiao fight?
Probably.
So I don't see Freddie losing to Nacho based off of Freddie. The pride he has. I think that Mark's gonna beat him, but I think that that's an interesting thing, and I hope they touch on that fight week, because that would make me more interested in this fight if we thought about like the last time Freddie was in a corner and Nacho Berenstein was in a corner. It was on pay-per-view for a fight that we all watched, and now they're renewing their rivalry as coaches, and here's two guys that could actually be. This could be the next. I mean, it probably won't be, right? Because neither of these guys jump off the page as like the next Marquez or the next Pacquiao.
Right.
But it's like these are the next. This is the next Filipino fighter Freddie Roach is training that's a world champion. This is the next Mexican fighter that Nacho has. Who knows where this goes? Like this could be. This has the makings of either being a really good fight or a really bad fight, but it's not going to be in the middle. If that makes sense.
There's gonna be no in the middle of this one.
If Magsayo is winning the fight, it's gonna be an amazing fight. If Rey Vargas is winning this fight, people are gonna be on their phones talking about, I'd rather watch paint dry. And they're gonna be, you know what they're gonna do? They're gonna be looking like me on Hulu. There's a show called Sasquatch. I just heard about it, and I want to watch Sasquatch, and I've never seen it. And if I haven't seen it by Saturday, and if Ray's winning, and it's like 4 or 5 rounds of the same ththing, jab, move, I'll probably watch Sasquatch. Probably flip over.
Damn, I can never do no shit like that. Like I gotta finish the whole fight.
I did that with Chocolatito's fight against Martinez. I watched 4 rounds and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of these, and I just
damn.
I was like, okay, I know how this goes. But I mean, I've been to a lot of shows where it's like, I don't know, I'm just so used to leaving boxing shows. Like I'd go and I'd be with the undercard fighters, and then the main event would start, and it's like, oh yeah, this is how it's gonna play out. Let's go get food. And then
oh wow.
So it's like, I don't know. I was like, that Chocolatito fight versus Martinez, I'm like, I'm really excited. I wonder if Chocolatito still got it. I'm like, he's got it. I'll go back on the internet when he knocks him out. And he didn't knock him out. And I was like, and someone tried to tell me it was a close fight, and I'm like, I don't see how that could have been a close fight, because I watched the first 4 rounds, and Martinez, if that was a math exam, Chocolatito was doing geometry. and what's his name? Martinez was trying to do long division. That was what I was seeing. Like he's like, oh, I got the answers. When you put the number on top of this is the way you perform it, and then he'd do the maneuver based on the recommendations of the formulas he knows to follow and then get hit with a punch because he just didn't understand what was coming back. And that, I was like, oh my god. And then that was one where it's like, I've seen enough of these type of fights where I know it. I know the way this ends.
So what's your prediction though? So how you guys? Cause you gotta pick one.
I think he picked.
I'm gonna pick Mark Magsayo, and I will pick a majority decision.
It's actually not a bad prediction.
I can see that. I
can see that too. And like I said before, I think it's 50-50. And like I said, because
I can see it Rigondeaux Casamero-esque.
We don't want to wish that poison.
Oh, well, just...
Don't put that in the air, Lukie. We don't want to wish that on anyone.
Can we kick Lukie off just for mentioning that? Like, I vote to kick Lukie off. Like, no,
yeah, you might not be welcome in the bodega after this one.
Remember when people like I love my man Regan Diao, but nobody was jumping to his defense after that damn fight, bro. It's like,
oh yeah, no, Rigo probably killed his PBC career with that fight for sure. Like, you can't put him back on TV after that.
You could just say killed his career. Like, who cares about just like what promoter would be like, okay, this guy's like one of the best amateurs ever, multiple-time world champion. His mandatory minimum is massive. He sells about a handful of tickets, and they're like, well, what's a handful? Like a couple of thousand? No, literally just like you grab a handful of tickets. That's like the people he knows. So you're like, okay, maybe that's $300-400. Okay. Does he have a fan base that travels? Well, actually, no. Cubans can't come into America, and the Cubans that live in America actually don't support Cuban Americans, the Cuban community. Do you get pay-per-view royalties on his fight? Well, no. Cuba won't air the fights. Local market doesn't do it.
Yeah, the only country that supports him is Japan. Japan loves that guy for whatever reason. But then Rigo also actually has his best fights in Japan. Go figure.
I mean, the fight, if before he got injured, the fight that would have been great would have been the passing of the torch, him versus Inoue, where Inoue would have sparked him out in a couple of rounds, and that would have just been like the, hey, here's the next guy fight.
Nobody was asking for that fight, you know.
After that Casemiro fight, no one was asking for that fight. And I pray to goodness that Magsayo and Vargas does not end that way. Because, but I've watched enough Vargas fights on Golden Boy, where he hasn't scored a stoppage since like 2016 or some shit like that. You know, so he, like I say, he can box, but he's not. He's not all that in entertainment.
Well, I write a lot about boxing. In case you guys don't know, like I write often just to myself because I like writing about boxing. Not necessarily love watching boxing all the time, but I write about it. And I compared Rey Vargas to Ichabod Crane, and I think that's a pretty fair comparison. He's long. At times he's awkward and seems like that he wants to move away from the action, and at times he seems heroic as well. And it's like, if you just view Rey Vargas as Ichabod Crane for this fight, it might be a helpful template. It might, if the fight goes a bad way, it could add some enjoyment if you just pretend that's Ichabod Crane anyway.
Damn.
See, so my prediction is, because I think it's just too much 50-50 with too much intangibles, so I'm going to call this a draw for both of them.
Well, I'm glad. Wow. You know when I do those? When I know both fighters and they hate me if I pick a winner. So then I just go, it's going to be a draw, and then now I have to do, it's going to be a no contest. There's going to be a head clash, and it's going to be stopped in, you know.
Yeah, because I think Magsayo is not that great, but Vargas is one of those people, like, they probably want to keep him around, keep his zero intact, so if he fights well enough, he may earn, they might decide to save him with the PBC draw. So that's the reason why I'm calling a draw for this fight.
You can always tell who has the plot armor in boxing. Like, right. And I always feel like
these guys don't have the plot armor, Shutter. These guys aren't powerful enough.
I mean, Magsayo is attacked by Manny Pacquiao, bro. Like, he has
like everybody.
Look, everybody has, like, every fight has somebody with plot armor. It's just layers and degrees of the plot armor. Just like, like let me see, a Steven Seagal ain't gonna get the type of amenities as a Donnie Yen would right now.
Have you seen Steven Seagal run in movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever typed that into YouTube, Steven Seagal running? It's some of the funniest, like, for some dude that pride. Like, is Steven Seagal, like, the biggest dick ever, where, like, the minute his career went wrong, people were just waiting for him to fail because he was just so miserable to people that they're like, okay, that's it. Now we never have to work with him. He's a proven failure. It's like, because, like, I was on a plane the other day, and I typed in Steven Seagal sexual assault allegations, and it's like multiple pages, and it's like stories of him being blacklisted. And when you brought that up, I was just thinking about, is there a person who randomly entered Hollywood and then left Hollywood quicker than Steven Seagal? I'm not sure it's possible.
He didn't even leave quicker. It's just he got lesser roles, and then they started bringing him back as a bad guy. Like, That's the thing. Steven Seagal, he got classic movies.
But then once he got fat and started doing the Buddhist shit or whatever the fuck or the stuff he was doing, and his views on top of that, his career went the other way.
They had to get DMX and Ja Rule to help bring him back.
Yeah.
What's the movie where it's like he's a dead guy, or he's a guy that his family died? They bring him back. Then there's like a random nurse who basically just goes against all of her coworkers.
I know what you're talking about. The damn.
And then like he's working out in the gym, and there's like photos of his kid and his wife, and then she basically seduces him. And I'm like, how does any of this like make sense? Like,
that's the classic Hard to Kill. I got all the
he gets the beard and he's in the coma and
like that's why people make bad decisions in life. Like you put together like that type of logic, and people are gonna be like, okay, well I'm gonna make a bad decision here because I watched Hard to Kill and that's my favorite movie, and fuck it. Like that is part of why people make decisions.
Nah, we only respect Under Siege 1 and 2, Mark for Death, and what else he has? We doing Out for Justice?
Out for Justice, yeah. That was hard. That was hard.
That's it. Like
he would have been good in Predator. Like if they had done a reboot with Predator and he's in there, because I think that the great thing about Seagal was he had a great whisper, so you like would always like kind of whisper. He was like a really good movie whisperer, so you'd be like, okay, here's stuff. He was like always whispering and shit. And
he was Virgil Hunter before Virgil Hunter.
Yeah, so I think in like a jungle, and like if like you told him to show up like in Mexico on the Predator movie set, and you're like, okay, here's what we're gonna want. We're just gonna want you to dress up like you're the most elite Navy, Marine, Air. You're a SEAL. You gotta bring tactical gear and just show up how you'd show up if you were going to a recon mission. You know that you wouldn't even need to pay someone from the costume department because he'd come with such an awesome and ridiculous overblown outfit that he would be there. You'd be like, okay, that works. And then just kind of let him wing it. Like I'd just put a camera on him, just have him run around in the jungle. The Predator's chasing you. Like,
he kind of did that already up in the air with that one movie. I think with Kurt Russell, Executive Decision.
He got
they just said, you know what?
Minutes. Yeah.
Let's have him do the exact same thing you're talking about, and let's make him do that in the airplane.
I mean, it's a great idea, right? Because that's even easier, right? So you're like, okay, here's a set. It's called an airplane. Let's put this guy in there. We're gonna film it in like 3-4 days. And now just like basically just have him be himself. It's probably absolutely crazy.
I swear, one day we gotta do a retro review on one of his early 90s movies, man.
Dude,
I mean, they're pretty bad. Like, I think Jean-Claude Van Damme of all the terrible actors is probably like the most compelling because like he had a slew of movies that are pretty bad, but they're like so entertaining for like if
he got classics too though.
No, he's got the better classics, but like why I'm saying they're bad is like I realized rap wasn't like a super like rap doesn't age well unless it's a certain rapper. When I saw Europeans rapping in Europe and like there's a music video and I'm just it's like this is already embarrassing. So it's like if this is what Europeans see certain people doing, I see how ridiculous it is. I don't see Jean-Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal's movies translating language. Like if you showed that as a foreign film to someone and they don't have an entry point to American culture, that is going to be the dumbest shit they've ever seen.
Yeah.
It really depends on the movies, man. But I would say this though.
Death Wish is like what's the one with Kumite? Is that Death Wish?
Bloodsport.
But that's the only one because I'd love to remake Bloodsport with a bunch of kickboxers and like a Jarrell Big Baby Miller would be great in like a Bloodsport, like is like one of the bad guys who's killing people. No, he'd be like a guy that like, oh God, don't fight him, and he's just like, how every like Bloodsport always has that guy that's unnecessarily evil.
Yeah, the bolo guy.
It's like, wouldn't he be like a really good like the second man in charge. Like there's like a boss, and then like he's the dude. Nah, you can't fight me. You gotta fight this guy. And that's Big Baby
I can see that. I can see that. It's just, I don't know. He might just come off to. He got to get in better shape, bro. Like,
I like Big Baby Miller, man. I want to see him get it.
And to be the number 2, hell nah. He's like a sub boss. Like he's the boss that you fight in the damn bar fight, and he's the biggest bar fight guy.
So
like,
Street Fighter, when you beat the game, like how many bosses did you have? You had Vega, Sagat, and M. Bison.
And Balrog.
He'd be Vega. Okay, so who was the guy that climbed the fence?
Vega.
That's who he'd be.
Now we ain't gonna make his fat ass beat us.
No, in his own way. But that's the type of lane he'd be in, you know. He's not.
This tangent is crazy because we go from that to that.
Yo, I'ma just say this, because my father had like all types of old black belt magazines from like the 80s and 70s, and I constantly seen like the articles about Van Damme and Seagal. They weren't really liked and respected like that with their peers. Like throughout the years, they're always getting shitted on. People always hating on them and upset with them. They don't like how they train. This, that, their attitudes. They're smug. Like I don't know. It's just those two guys. They just rubbed a lot of people. And I'm reading this from like all types of martial artists. Bob Wall, Don the Dragon Wilson. Like I'm saying all these names. I know Pat know him. I don't know Pilot and King P, but like a lot of these guys, they couldn't stand damn Van Damme.
Van Damme was like,
Seagal.
If you remember, he was the splits guy. So like he was like, you could just tell people were like, he was like an Instagrammer before Instagram. He was doing that splits pose and ads and stuff, and you could see real martial artists being like, really, bro? All of us can hit that splits pose. Like you could just see people be impressed. Like, really? You think you're something doing that? And then like, no disrespect to Steven Seagal, but like Aikido, I mean, I've known people that have done Aikido and it's effective, but isn't that for like disarming a weapon? Like it's like if you're
it can be for that, but it's the thing with Aikido, how Steven Seagal ruins Aikido for his movies. He makes himself too invincible. He's the only guy who can fight a room full of Jamaicans with swords and knives and gets not one cut. That was the problem with Aikido. And his style and the way he put it in his movies. It's like Aikido could look beautiful when it's choreographed and you're practicing it, but a lot of times it's gonna look rough, and you're not gonna just make it look so crouching tigerish when you fighting damn 15 dudes in a jewelry store.
I mean, so who had the best fight scenes? I think it would either be like Jackie Chan or Jet Li.
I mean, if we was comparing, of course, when you compare them to damn Steven Seagal and damn Van Damme,
was raw because he was really doing those stunts, like fucking himself up.
Like, yeah, of course, you can't compare them to the American and to them guys. It's not even fair. Like,
it is fair because I think Steven Seagal compared himself to Jackie Chan.
Shit.
I literally think there's a quote where he said that like he should be a bigger star than Jackie Chan. I could be wrong, but like I believe he's the one that compared himself to Jackie Chan.
And now you see why people didn't really, now you see why he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Jackie Chan's just hella friendly and like a literal badass.
And it's the movies, but damn, yeah, we went off on well. Shout out to Cynthia Rothrock. I mean, we mentioned her too.
Yeah, man. So tune into Showtime. It's going to be a tremendous fight. Ichabod Crane, Rey Vargas versus Mark Magsayo. It's going to be great.
But then also too, I mean, we do have, there's 2 other fights on there. I mean, as we mentioned before, you got Brandon Figueroa making his comeback from allegedly losing to Stephen Fulton.
Allegedly.
That was a really close fight, bro. That one kind of rubbed me the wrong way about Fulton.
I think, we went back and forth on that one too on here, and he's facing Carlos Castro, and Castro, I think coming off the loss to Luis Neri too, if I'm not mistaken. So that's it's an eliminator. So pretty much whoever wins this one will probably face the winner of Vargas.
This is a hard fight for Carlos Castro, bro, because it's like Neri does a lot less than Brandon Figueroa does, and he was having trouble with Neri, who's not like the highest volume guy. I mean, this is gonna be hard.
Yeah, Figueroa
hit hard though.
Yeah, Figueroa hits incredibly hard, and he has work rate too on top of that.
Yeah, his smothering style works pretty well.
Yeah, and he goes low and he's throwing punches, and you got to counter low and high because he's dipping and shit. And it's
so relentless too. It's so relentless and ugly, but it's so effective.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone have Castro winning even on an upset? Because I mean, I think Figueroa's gonna knock him out.
Nope. No upset.
Yeah.
Ain't no Hail Mary miracles on this one, yo.
No, and I'm gonna even go further and say in December we see the winner of the main event fight Brandon Figueroa on Showtime.
I'm sure of that. That's gonna happen. You know. Yeah. But yeah, I honestly, Castro, he's gonna lose. He's gonna get KO. Like he's not going to see.
He's gonna get KO'd or dominated.
Respectfully, you know.
Respectfully,
I'm sure Carlos's family could be listening. Like we're not saying he's a bad person. It's just like, you know, I hope he trained hard. And
I mean, yo, this boxing, man. People lose, people win. Like you can't get mad.
My face is on this telecast, you know. Sometimes people try to run up, you know, they do finger gestures, try to let me know where they're from. I just want to clarify, you know, I'm not saying you're a bad person. For sure, you're great under God's eyes.
Please don't run up on Lukie for, you know, picking against you as a boxing prediction. Like, all you gotta do is just prove people wrong. That's the end of the story. Like, I don't know, people be getting bent out of shape with when people be picking someone to lose or win. It's like, what do you think Vegas does?
And they also got the Frank Martin. I know Rashidi Ellis is on the YouTube portion of the card.
Yeah, I mean the opener for the main card.
Shit, wow. That's a good look.
But Spade's not televised, but at least it's on Showtime/YouTube. It'll be at least. The Frank Martin fight is the opener of the triple header. He's facing Ricardo Nunez, who's more famous. He's known for getting bodied by taking 2 rounds. That was supposed to be on the Charlo card, actually. I'm glad they put it on this one though.
Yeah, exactly. So Frank Martin, though, Derek James, trained by Derek James. Dude is an actual talent. So this is a good, this is a good. I wouldn't call it a step up fight, but a good showcase fight for him.
It's a good test for him. It's a good test.
Yeah, and I'm also glad too that Speedy, Rashidi Ellis is
finally,
he's finally fighting again. After the split from Golden Boy, he's gonna be on the YouTube portion, in his PBC debut. And and honestly, hopefully that they can get him back to where it needs to be, because he'll be a good addition to the PBC welterweight division, the welterweight contingent.
Yeah, they're stable there. Yeah. I think if he shows out here and gets in solid, he hasn't fought like in 2 years against Roca, I think, but he'll probably be on the main card, if he gives a good outing at this time.
If he bodies to do it in the YouTube portion, then we'll definitely probably see him in an opener in one case. But because Rashidi is a talent, and it's just you didn't want to see all that go to waste, just sitting there on the sidelines doing nothing, So good for him for at least getting out of that situation, and getting his career back on, back where it needed to be. That PBC card, tune in, you probably will see you'll see something on there that you enjoy, and you gotta hope that the main event, doesn't reek of the evil that Lukie spoke of earlier. And then